Good morning, everybody. Before we commence today's official proceedings, I request that you join me in observing a 2-minute silence to honour the life of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. May she rest in eternal peace. I would now like to declare the 78th Ordinary Annual General Meeting of the Racehorse Owners Association officially open. Thank you all for joining us live today. I am Charlie Liverton, Chief Executive of the Racehorse Owners Association. The meeting will begin with the formal AGM, which will then be followed by the President's speech. And we will then dedicate the remainder of the meeting for questions and answers. I'd like to thank those members who have submitted questions in advance of the meeting. During the meeting, you will also have the opportunity to pose any further questions if you wish. Please email agm@roa.co.uk with your name, membership number and question. That's agm@roa.co.uk. We'll now move on swiftly to the official procedures of the meeting and the resolutions to approve. The notice convening this meeting is set out on page 3 of the annual report, which has been circulated to all members. For the purposes of this meeting, it is taken as read. We'll deal with the items set out in the annual report under Notice of Meeting. And as in previous years, and according to best corporate practice, I will announce the proxy vote after each resolution. I'd also like to remind you that in accordance with the ROA's Articles of Association, each of today's resolutions are ordinary resolutions and therefore simply require a majority vote. Item A, to receive by way of ordinary resolution the nominations of the board for President Charlie Parker and Vice President Alan Spence. We've received 145 proxy forms supporting Resolution A and 82 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item B, to receive by way of ordinary resolution the co-option of Khalid Al-Mudaff, Charlie Liverton, Ken McGarrity and Chris Wright as appointed directors to the board. We've received 147 proxy forms supporting Resolution 1 and 80 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item C, to receive by way of ordinary resolution the results of the election to fill vacancies on the board. Stephen Astaire and Yvette Dixon stepped down from the board this year, and I'd like to place on record my sincere thanks for their contributions and service to the ROA and wish them every success on and off the racecourse. There are 3 candidates who have stood for election to the board. There are 3 vacancies and 3 candidates applied. Therefore, no ballot was required. I'm now pleased to inform the meeting that the following members have been elected onto the board: Mark Albon, Charles Walker and Tom Goff. We have received 189 proxy forms supporting Resolution B and 38 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item D, to confirm and adopt by way of ordinary resolution the report and financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 2022. We have received 207 proxy forms supporting Resolution D and 20 against. I declare the resolution carried. Item E, to appoint by way of ordinary resolution RSM UK Audit LLP as auditors in accordance with section 485 of the Companies Act 2006. We have received 212 proxy forms supporting Resolution E and 15 against. I declare the resolution carried. That concludes the formal part of the meeting. Thank you. I'd now like to invite your President, Charlie Parker, to address the meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Before I start a review of the ROA over the past 12 months, I want to take this time to pay my respects on behalf of everyone at the ROA and also on behalf of British horse racing to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Queen Elizabeth was racing's best known and revered owner and breeder. As well as being an avid racegoer, she lived and breathed racing. Her horses were one of her greatest passions. Her Majesty will be sorely missed by all within the horse racing community. She gave a lifetime of support to our industry and sport, for which we are immensely grateful. Racing has lost one of its greatest friends. This is my third year presiding over this meeting as president, and it is fair to say that the last 12 months have seen a welcome return to something like normal following the pandemic, both in terms of day-to-day life and on the racecourse. On one hand, things are back to normal. Indeed, we are racing for more prize money this year than we have ever done in the past. But on the other, we are facing a fresh set of new challenges, what with high levels of inflation, the continuing war in Ukraine and its impact across Europe, sky-high energy prices, and the UK's weakening growth outlook and downward pressure on the pound. On top of these macroeconomic challenges, racing is facing its own unique headwinds, including field sizes, declining production numbers, and the potential changes to the betting regulations in the UK, which will be outlined in the much-delayed Gambling Act review. Depending on what is included in this report, it could have a sizable impact on both racing and the Treasury. Should a blanket affordability check be implemented, this could result in substantial annual loss of revenue and an even greater impact to the amount that the gambling industry contributes to the Treasury. The parliamentary summer recess has now concluded, and we have a new Prime Minister, a new Cabinet, and in Michelle Donnellan, a new Digital Culture, Media and Sports Secretary. So we eagerly await her take on the Gambling Act review, albeit previous statements by the new Minister give us some cause for optimism. It seems the only constant is change, and I would like to recognise and thank the executives across the ROA team for their unwavering focus and dedication given the steady flow of curveballs and distractions that they have been faced with. The past 12 months has seen the team put into action the recommendations which came out of the Corporate Governance Review, providing a strong sense of direction and focus. The team is now in action and has engaged a number of our board members and owners in key working groups covering the principal areas for delivery. These are critical to challenge our thinking, bring external perspective and best practice and new ideas. The ROA team continue to innovate to ensure that we are ahead of the curve when it comes to changes in the sport and looking for opportunities for us to better engage with and understand owners' requirements. The team spend a considerable amount of time in trainers' yards and on the racecourses themselves, speaking with our key stakeholders, both in terms of providing updates, but most critically, listening to feedback. At an industry level, the ROA remains at the forefront of the big conversations with our stakeholder partners. Our role is to ensure owners' voices are at the heart of discussions and that our needs and requirements as owners help shape the agenda and are reflected in the wider industry's strategy planning. I recognise that British racing is in desperate need of a strategic plan, which will help address key issues including governance, structure, strategy, race programming, and the distribution of prize money. To many on the outside, progress may appear slow. However, I want to reassure you that the onus is on getting this right and not finding a quick fix. There will be updates from the BHA in the coming weeks, which will set out the long-term roadmap for our sport. Through my role, I am pushing hard on behalf of all owners, working closely with other participant bodies, the BHA board, its new chairman, and the team at the RCA to produce a strategic plan for the coming years. It is important for me to reaffirm that the ROA does have a very strong voice on key issues facing our sport. However, along with other stakeholders, we do not possess our own right to make changes. Working together to achieve our aims will get things done more quickly. One of the perennial hot topics in racing is prize money. Despite all the frustration and disparaging headlines, as I said in my opening remarks, prize money in the UK this year will be at its highest level ever, well in excess of 175 million. This increase is a result of greater contributions from the levy board and racecourses. The ROA works closely with the racecourses to ensure that they recognise the real need to invest in prize money across the race programme, and naturally we are delighted that they and the levy board have invested more this year than historically has been the case. In 2022, over the course of the year, we have seen a majority of racecourses publicly confirm that their prize monies levels were back to or exceeded pre-pandemic levels, showing promising trends and progress. However, the key is to grow the size of the revenue into the sport over the coming years and to ensure that the participants have a transparent view as to their share of those revenues. The new strategy will seek to grow the sport. To do that, the industry will need owners and they must be rewarded along with other participants. Earlier this month, the 2023 fixture update was released, providing detailed updates relating to the increase in minimum values across both codes. Whilst we recognise that these are small steps, they are important steps, and we will continue to work closely across the industry to drive prize money and owners' share of it wherever possible. Indeed, the recently announced BHA strategy plans outline how racing leaders will work together to set a long-term strategy and priorities for British racing. Prize money is the key element of this, in particular reviewing levels and distribution. We recognise the need for growth over the next 5 years, given the forthcoming levy reform and the outcome from the Gambling Act review. The strategy planning will also look at opportunities to review existing media rights arrangements, and conversations continue in this space to identify opportunities. This spring, we reactivated the racecourse accreditation scheme, following a hiatus due to the pandemic. We believe that racecourse experience is a huge part of ownership and vital to attracting new and retaining existing owners. The aim of the ROA accreditation scheme is to increase our engagement with racecourses and provide a formal mechanism to share owner feedback with a view to improving standards and the owner experience. To date, close to 40 racecourses have been independently assessed by the AA, with over 60% attaining an improved score on 2019. Owner feedback has been fully integrated into the accreditation scheme framework, ensuring they provide the key focus areas for improvements going forward. From the start of this year, spectator numbers have been under the spotlight. Recent data has confirmed that in the first quarter of 2022, we saw the lowest attendance levels in British racecourses since records began, excluding 2020 and 2021 for obvious reasons. Smaller meetings and weekdays have been hardest hit, with a significant drop in numbers through the turnstiles. However, it's not all doom and gloom with respect to spectator numbers, as record attendances were seen on the course at the UK's major Cheltenham Grand National Festivals and the Royal Ascot meeting. This is offset with some great stories and headlines, which has kept British racing on the front and the back pages. The standout successes of Rachel Blackmore and Holly Doyle has given us something momentous to celebrate. Baaeed, arguably the best racehorse in the world, bred in Britain by Chadwell Estate and British trained by William Haggis, with the next generation owner in Sheikha Hissa, who is carrying on her late father's legacy. ROA strategic partnerships are absolutely critical to our success. And in Racing Welfare and the Tote, we have further solidified these important relationships. Racing Welfare has seen a real rise in profile, highlighting the need for the industry to have a support mechanism in place for those working in the sport and their families. The ROA recognises the vital work Racing Welfare delivers and is a proud supporter of this important charity. They, after all, work with all those who look after your horses day in and day out, and for whom we are truly grateful. The ROA is also one of the industry's investors in the Tote. The Tote has expanded its offer and is one of the founders of World Pool, allowing racegoers and remote bettors the opportunity to bet into a global pool consisting of over 20 countries. This is arguably a game changer for the sport financially and for keeping British racing firmly on the global map. Levy generation and commercial agreements are all welcome, but more funding must find its way into the prize money pot if the virtuous circle is to enrich the sport. The Tote has the potential to make a real impact in this space. A key part of the ROA's corporate governance review, which was ratified at last year's AGM, was the transition to a skill-based board. This year was the first time we asked members to apply for election to the board who had specific experience in one of three areas: finance, technology and communication. On the back of this, we anticipated fewer nominations for the available positions, and I am pleased to share that what we lacked in quantity, we made up for in quality. The applications we did receive demonstrated the desired skill set, and I would like to welcome Mark Albon and Charles Walker to the ROA board and welcome back Tom Goff. Having met with both Charlie and Mark over the summer, I know they bring the requisite expertise and energy, and I very much look forward to the whole board working with them in the future. We will ensure that the ROA continues to guide our sports leadership to improve ownership as an experience, as an investment, and protect the future of British racing. Undoubtedly, in the next 12 months, we will continue to face a myriad of challenges, and we will continue to tackle these head-on whilst remaining empathetic to those who are feeling disenfranchised with the pace of change. I believe that when the BHA is presented with a clear remit and parameters within which to operate and lead, this will be for the betterment of the sport. Our biggest challenges are also our biggest opportunities. Alongside this, the ROA will continue to evolve, flex and strive to serve owners representing their views, requirements and concerns at industry discussions. We have the power to influence change. We must harness this to ensure the sport is fit for the future. As we look to 2023, we will be focused, resilient and innovative, and will strive to deliver positive change for our members and all owners. With a talented team in place and the new initiatives under consideration, it promises to be a year to make real progress. It is a privilege to continue to fight for your interests as owners. Thank you all for listening, and I look forward to seeing many of you soon. I will now hand back to Charlie Liverton to start the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. As he says, we'll now move on to the questions and answer section. Before we do, I'd like to acknowledge and thank those of you that have submitted questions in advance of the meeting. The first question, why is the ROA hosting a virtual AGM? Mouse, maybe I could ask you to answer that question.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. This is obviously an issue that seems to have caused a fair level of concern amongst all our members, so much so that it was even commented on in the press. So we want to reassure you that there are various factors that go into the decision, the board's decision, where or how to hold this AGM. Most notably, obviously, the geographic implications. We are a national organisation. We have members all across the UK and an increasing membership base now internationally, well represented on the board by Khalid Al-Mudaf from Kuwait. So whichever location we picked in the UK would be unsuitable or unavailable to some of you, to many of you. And we feel, as various other FTSE companies have decided, this is actually a more accessible and inclusive way for you, our members, to join in and have your views heard. Even though it might seem distant with us sitting here and you not in the room, there are all different ways for members to have submitted their questions, which they have already, and the live feed that's going on at the moment. So regardless of where you are, and we all understand travel is increasingly expensive, as us owners know, with rising bills for transport to the racecourses and the uncertainty of travel with strikes everywhere. It was felt that this was the most cost-efficient way, both for the ROA and for our members, to hold the AGM. There's also the different options that you have. You can replay this all over again if you want to listen to it. You've got subtitles. And so basically it is a more flexible way to hold a meeting such as this. But we do review annually where or how this meeting is held. So we do welcome your feedback and after this meeting is over, so we can use all of that and digest it before we make a decision next spring as to where the meeting might be held in the future.
Great. Thank you very much, Mouse. The second question, why was there no election for new board members? Celia, would you care to take this one?
I think, Charlie, you answered the question yourself when you put the resolutions forward. There were 3 candidates for 3 places, and Charlie Parker, in his president's speech, gave an explanation for why we had fewer candidates because of the transition to a skills-based board. This isn't an entirely unusual situation of having equal number of candidates as there are vacancies. And in fact, the TBA's AGM yesterday had 2 vacancies and 2 candidates. So they didn't have an election either. But I think that sums it up, really.
Great. Thank you, Celia. We're going to move on to some questions now relating to our financials, which I'll direct to our President, Charlie Parker. The first question, Charlie, can you explain the large loss in this year's accounts?
The ROA is, in all intents and purposes, a not-for-profit organisation. And in 2021, the accounts showed a significant surplus, both profit and loss level and at EBITDA level. So a decision was taken in 2022 in the budget to look at the next 2 years, that's 2022 and 2023, as one, and to invest in the ROA's business as part of that 24-month programme. To that extent, we launched the VAT scheme, which has proved to be very successful, and on the back of making tax digital changes that came in this year. And we also purchased the 50% shareholding in the magazine. So we're very comfortable with the results for 2022. The balance sheet remains very strong. We have significant cash resources, and we also have a long-term investment in the tote that we discussed in the speech that we hope will realise some significant uplift in our asset value going forward.
Great, thank you, Charlie. And I've got one more for you. The financial position of the ROA looks weak. Declining membership, a substantial deficit and increasing operating expenses. What steps are being taken to bring about a necessary turnaround in financial strength?
Well, as I just referenced in the previous answer, there are some specifics in this. The ROA, along with many other businesses, suffered at the outset of COVID. We did lose a number of members who effectively didn't have any horses in training, but were enjoying the access to race courses that the ROA membership scheme enabled them to do when race courses originally shut and then went behind closed doors and then was owner only. So we did have a shortfall there. That has now steadied off, and we are now seeing an upward tick there. And I think the question is probably misplaced to the extent that we have a strong asset position. We have the majority of our assets are in cash. We have no debt, and we have long-term investments in both the magazine, both the tote as an organisation, and also the VAT company that we've set up. So I think one can't be too blasé, but we're in a good position financially.
Great, thank you, Charlie. Stephen, I've got a question for you, if I may. What is the ROA doing to ensure that owners continue to receive the recognition they deserve on course?
Thank you, Charlie. When I joined the ROA Council, as it was then, a long, long time ago, I was quite shocked as to how owners were treated by racecourses. We were almost considered an inconvenience, lucky to get a cup of tea and a chair. And over the years, that has changed dramatically. And it's changed because of the work that this organisation has done. I'm proud to have been part of that with the creating the Owner's Badge Scheme, being part of the Gold Standard Committee, along with some excellent colleagues, Dina Arstle, Sally Rowley-Williams. And that, as the chairman president has mentioned earlier, is now part of the accreditation scheme run by the AA. And I think that owners will now realise and recognise that the offering they get from racecourses in the number of badges, in the meals, in the whole environment, in the rooms that they use, has improved dramatically. And that wouldn't have happened without intervention and cajoling and persuading by the ROA. We've also been instrumental in ensuring that owners are recognised throughout race day presentations and throughout COVID and beyond, driven the lead with the ITV on-course sponsorship and leading owner achievements. This has been reflected in the ROA forum within our magazine, as well as through magical moments. We continue to drive the recognition and champion the support of owners, and I'm sure that the board, going forward, along with the superb team that they have behind them, will continue to make sure that things are on an upward trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Unfortunately, Philip Davies MP is unable to join us today in person. However, he's taken some time out to answer the next question on your behalf, which was, please can you explain the role of the ROA in British horse racing?
The role of the ROA in British horse racing is a really important question, and even more pertinent given the upcoming changes to the governance and structure of the BHA. The remit and role of stakeholders is changing once again, having changed quite significantly in 2016 with the implementation of the members' agreement and the then new tripartite structure. Fundamentally at our core, our primary role at the ROA is to protect and represent owners' interests across the industry. This is undertaken in a number of ways and includes your president being on the board of the BHA and your chief executive and his wider team representing owners' interests across industry working groups and committees. This includes areas such as governance, structure, industry strategy, fixtures and funding, the racing group, gambling reform, equine welfare, Great British Racing and the promotion of the sport, corporate affairs, to name but a few. The ROA, therefore, is at the centre of the key issues and conversations taking place across the industry, working with our key stakeholders. It's within this stakeholder landscape that we look to influence and effect change, recognising the impact any change might have on other stakeholders, but pushing the case where it is in the best interests of owners. This has always been the case, and we are working hard, along with our stakeholders across the industry, to ensure that the owner's voice remains at the heart of these discussions. Our role, therefore, is to ensure that the needs of owners are at the centre of discussions around these key issues, and through Charlie Parker on the board of the BHA and the chief executive on the key industry committees, this is happening in practice every day. What this means is that the ROA has a very strong voice on the key issues facing the sport. However, we do not possess decision rights to make changes. As an organisation, we therefore have influence across many of the decisions, as well as, of course, as challenge. However, there are instances where the ROA has no influence, and that includes across all matters that are known as autonomous decisions within the current members' agreement. These are matters in which the BHA does not have to consult, given their role and remit as the governing body, and includes matters such as integrity, compliance, disciplinary matters, and licensing.
Thank you, Philip. The next question is, a competence framework for directors has been adopted, implying inadequate knowledge, skills and capabilities at board level. Which are the most important gaps? How will these now be overcome, not least with the failure of this year's election process for new directors? Charlie, could I ask you to answer that one?
First answer is that election wasn't a failure. We've managed to fill 3 spaces with 3 excellent candidates and individuals, so I refute that bit. The corporate governance review that was done last year and was approved by the members basically approved the transition to a more skill-based board. To that extent, a skill set matrix has been adopted and will be looked at after this election, including the 3 new candidates and the sadly departing two directors. And we will continue to work in that space to hopefully get to the best possible board across a multitude of skills, whether that's finance, technology, communication, as this year, and whatever gaps there may be going forward.
Thank you, Charlie. The next question is, what power or legislation gives Weatherby's Bank the monopoly on banking for racehorse owners? Celia, could I ask you to answer that one, please?
I'm really happy to say that Weatherby's does not have a monopoly on banking for horse owners, and page 71 of your June Owner Breeder magazine set out in details the two alternatives. One is Weatherby's, the other is to have a direct account with the BHA and then direct debit, direct credit off your own bank account, which is absolutely free, subject to your own banking charges. This also works if there are two of you in a partnership. I haven't tried it with more than two, but the BHA will attribute your bills and credits between the two of you in the percentages you specify. Anybody who doesn't know how to do this, there's a lovely team at the ROA who can help you on the phone. Otherwise, go online, and I'm sure that you can set up an account online with the BHA through the Racing Admin website to do this directly. My own account predates doing things online, so I'm not entirely sure now, but certainly there's a wonderful team at the ROA who can help you do it, and no charge. If you're in a partnership of 3 or 4, you may find that it is difficult to open a joint bank account other than through Weatherby's, in which case you will have to go with them and pay their charges and comply with their T&Cs. But you may be able to open a joint account with a high street bank, which may well be cheaper.
Thank you, Celia. The next question is, what support does the ROA provide to protect owners from industry malpractice? We've asked Tom Goff to respond to this. He sadly can't be with us today as he's travelling back from the US, but he's kindly sent his thoughts.
The ROA has always supported owners in situations where they believe that there has been malpractice. This includes working with the BHA, sales houses, agents, trainers and breeders to agree and implement the new Bloodstock Code of Conduct. The ROA is represented on the Bloodstock Industry Forum by the CEO and myself. Any owner who feels that they're a victim of malpractice is now able to access free legal advice through the Bloodstock Industry Forum's legal counsel. This advice is both free and confidential. The ROA also works closely with the NTF with regards to our joint ROA-NTF training agreement. This agreement includes both a section on the resolution of disputes and a clause pertaining to the ROA-NTF training agreement, which makes provision for an owner-trainer to pay a disputed sum into a joint account at Weatherby's controlled by the ROA and the NTF. The ROA office is able to provide information for guidance, but only guidance, with regard to sale, purchase and lease agreements. We recommend that members seek legal advice when drawing up such agreements. To support owners, on our website there is a list of solicitors who have racing expertise and can support your needs.
Thank you, Tom. Following questions along a similar theme. Will the President, CEO and Board of the ROA publicly commit to making the fight against the prevalent endemic dishonesty in the bloodstock supply chain one of their key priorities? Tom has just highlighted in his response, the ROA has always committed to support owners in this space, whether it was in the Justice and Police Review, whether it was integral to the setting up of the Bloodstock Integrity Forum, whether it was implementing the Code of Practice, Code of Conduct that was approved earlier this year, or indeed working with the NTF to support any owners that may have a concern in this space. We will always be here to help owners where they believe that there has been dishonest behaviour. The next question, what opportunities are there going forwards for members to engage with board members? Mouse, in your capacity as a member of the Communications Working Group, could you share your thoughts, please?
Yes, thank you, Charlie. I think we recognise and acknowledge that our paths of communication have not been sufficiently accessible enough to satisfy our members. We are aware of it, and to this end, we're already planning some membership engagement events for the latter part of this year. And believe me, we are keen to create a dialogue that has obviously been lacking, so that members can hear firsthand what the board have been up to, that you don't have the feeling that everything is done behind closed doors without your knowledge, and in turn, so that we can stay in touch with your concerns and ideas. And I just want to say that any member wishing to get in touch with us, that we now have an email which will be posted on the website, roaboard@roa.co.uk, so you can get in touch with us directly if you want a response on any matter.
Thank you, Mouse. The next question is, what is being done to ensure lower handicapped horses are given the opportunity to race? Gay, perhaps you could answer that one, please.
Charlie. Yes, well, obviously I'm a major player in something like this because clearly everybody thinks I've got low-grade horses. But to your response there, Charlie, I have spoken to Mark Spence from ARC, and ARC are key players when it comes to lower-grade racing, as we all know, through the winter. And they are aware that we do need more races because, let's face it, there's more lower-grade horses than higher-grade horses in the UK. So therefore, they are working on it, and hopefully, obviously, we see with Chelmsford, for example, that the prize money is so good there. There was a 0 to 60 I won this year, and it was 10,000 prize money, which was great. And I think a lot of racecourses are becoming aware of this, and we need more help for us owners, small owners. Obviously, we do like to think our horses would be better graded horses, but it's just the way of the world, and we want to keep horses in training, and therefore I think racecourses are recognising that we do need better prize money and more races for these type of horses.
Thank you, Gay. The next question is, are there any plans to challenge racecourses owning the majority percentage of the fixture list? Chris Wright sadly can't be with us today, but he's taken the time to share his thoughts with you.
Are there any plans for us to challenge the fact that the racecourses own the fixture list? Well, that's a very, very complicated situation. Of course, it would be great if racing as an industry could revisit the whole concept of the fixture list centrally and reallocate fixtures, but really it's fraught with problems. There would be huge legal challenges, and it's not something that the ROA could even consider doing unilaterally. So, frankly, the answer to that is no. Unfortunately, there are no such plans.
Thank you, Chris. The next question is, as the rising number of owners are now in syndicates, what is the ROA actively doing to improve the experience at all racecourses? Charlie, can I ask you to take?
Well, the ROA has been involved initially with the accreditation of syndicate managers scheme, which the BHA then ran. We've also been involved in the establishment of the In the Paddock promotion that GBR have been running. So we're very actively involved in that sector. We are also looking at introducing tiered membership of the ROA to allow and encourage syndicate members to become ROA members. In terms of facilities on course, well, there's ongoing discussions through the accreditation group. And there's also progress being made with some of the larger racecourse groups about dedicated syndicate facilities and a more streamlined and better allocation of badges. And some of those promotions will hopefully come to fruition later in this year.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. The next question is quite detailed, so bear with me. The ROA's annual income is in the region of £2 million. How is that income allocated to 5 categories of activity, and are the members receiving value for money in each one? Category 1, membership administration and regular communication. Category 2, provision of membership benefits. Category 3, racecourse accreditation. Category 4, delivery of the VAT solution. And Category 5, advocacy of top ownership priorities relevant to owner acquisition and retention, and including representation on all the various industry bodies. Given this is an operational expenditure question, I'll respond to this one. The breakdown in spend around each category is Category 1, membership administration and regular communication, is around 40%. The provision of membership benefits, around 25%. The racecourse accreditation and the delivery of the VAT solution product, about 10%, and advocacy of top ownership priorities about 30%. So this is our final pre-submitted question, Charlie, which I will ask you to answer, please. Early June marked the announcement of the work to be done on a strategy for British racing, and there's an important meeting on this subject taking place in mid-September, facilitated by the BHA. What are the 5 must-have changes needed if ownership of racehorses is to be sustained?
Thank you, Charlie. Well, I think there's probably plenty more than 5, but the areas that need looking at first is the data around the industry to really inform decision making and inform our ideas, as opposed to some of the misconceptions that have haunted us in the past, and that will hopefully then encourage and improve the growth prospects for the industry as a whole, and that has to be connected with the engagement of a new generation of both participants, both racegoers, punters and owners and syndicate members. And I think those, from data to the growth ideas to the engagement with the next generation, we have to look at the betting landscape, and it's changing, and it's changed a lot from betting shop to online, and now the type of product that the younger generations in particular might be more interested in, and that will then lead on to what revenue we can generate. So you've got some commercial ideas, you've got some operational ideas, and then at the heart of it is the horse, the breed, the prospects for it, what it looks like in 5 to 10 years' time, what type of races that are designed for the breed, and then the people looking after the horses who are obviously dedicated and but need help. We need help in this area. Brexit has impacted immigration laws, so we need to start looking at our own resources to grow a generation of stable staff, of jockeys, of lorry drivers, of feed merchants to really power the strategy plan that will become effective or be discussed and hopefully then become effective following that, to really make us a world-class destination for horse racing of all types, both jumps and flat, and that is really my must-have takeouts of what we're going to do over the next months.
Great, thank you, Charlie. That's the end of the pre-submitted questions. So we'll now switch to some live questions which we've received via email. Louise, have we had any? We've had 2 live questions. Louise.
Thank you, Charlie. Yes, we have received 2 live questions. And going to the first, which relates to the handicapping system, thank you to Neil Ewart, who has submitted this, asking the question whether we should be looking at a system like the French that handicaps by prize money won. Thus, horses winning lesser races would not gather as heavy penalties as those only gaining second place.
Gay, I can see you're eager to answer this question.
I 100% agree with this question. I've always said we should have the similar handicap system to France, where you get a particular race, say a middle distance race, and instead of having like we have a system that's 0 to 80, 0 to 60, whatever, and various distances, you have one distance on the card, and what they do is just have an open handicap where the higher rated horses go in, obviously the higher prize money, and it peters down to the 4 handicaps, so the lower grade, and the handicap systems are set is much better because obviously the lower grade horses that won't get as high a penalty as the higher grade handicap horses in the top grade, and it reflects on the prize money as well. So therefore you have one middle distance race like a mile, and it was separated 4 races on the card. And I'm a great believer in that system would work a lot better than having all these races dotted all over the country. So you've got that mile race where your horse can run, for instance at Yarmouth, where you can run in whatever grade, because you put it, and you will have full fields in these races.
Does anybody else have any alternative views, perhaps? Thank you, Gay. Louise.
Thank you to Sam Hoskins, who has submitted our second question and is asking whether, or whether Charlie Liverton and Charlie Parker have considered resigning from their ROA roles.
Shall I answer that? I'll answer on my behalf. No, I haven't. No.
And I can categorically state I have never once considered resigning from my role.
Thank you. That's it for the live questions.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to finish by thanking you all for joining us today and submitting some fantastic questions. We look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future, either on the racecourse, and wish you every success. Thank you so much.